The world tells you who you are constantly, or at least it tries to. Some fall for it, some don't. The ones that don't often have something a little different about them. It's as if they're more in tune with themselves. They know their wants, needs, and preferences like the back of their hand. This is individuation, one of the most critical journeys in your life. And look, I'm not saying it's easy or that it will be easy, but it's critical. I was always a confident kid. I always felt like I could do anything. I spoke my mind and did what I wanted. And in a sense, it was very freeing, and I enjoyed my childhood a lot because I felt so expressive. And then as time went on, between family values and schooling and growing up in the Catholic Church and other influences, I naturally became more socialized into what we call society. And to a degree, this is important for people. And when you're socialized, you understand the norms and customs of the place you live. You're better able to integrate with people, connect with people, communicate. You're kind of part of everybody else. So socialization, it's important to a degree. But as I noticed growing up, my authentic voice slowly starting to sound less like me and more like other people. I had a inkling of this going on, and I kind of started to work on it naturally. I couldn't really verbalize what this was, the sense of non-individual growth. And then into my high school years, I started to kind of become my own person. I started to work on that, but it still wasn't polished, right? I had my little friend group and all of that. I still didn't feel like I was truly living how I want to, in terms of interests, the way I speak, the things I spend my time on, the things I don't spend my time on. And this was a perfect recipe because it led me to self-development. It led me into developing my authentic core. And there's actually a name for this. There's a process for this. And it's called individuation, a journey that Carl Jung coined about how the self can discover itself despite being influenced by others in its environment. And this is so crucial because if you don't know your wants, your needs, your preferences, you're always going to be living in other people's eyes, and you're going to be genuinely unhappy. So let's start breaking this down. When discussing human development, individuation refers to the process of forming a stable personality. As a person individuates, they gain a clearer sense of self that is separate from their parents and others around them. This is very key. We're brought into this world and we're under the guise and watch of our parents, and they take care of us and they love us and everything. But what happens with parents is that they literally see their child as if they own the child, as if the child isn't a sovereign being or can grow to be a sovereign being of their own. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s even. And when you talk to your parents, they still view you as a child, as a kid. A lot of parents do this. They fall into this trap because they can't help but see it. Their first contact with you is when you were a kid. It's lodged into their mind that you're still a kid in their eyes. It's like a first impression. Naturally, obviously, the kid grows up into the teenage years, into the 20s. And the kid becomes his own person. He naturally gravitates towards other things. And sometimes these things are opposed or opposite to what the parent wants. You hear the cliche of the dad that wants his kid to play football, but the kid wants to be an artist. Or the mom that wants her son to go to this college, but he wants to go to a different college. So there becomes an incompatibility between the wants of the individual and the wants of the parent or the guardian or the people in the person's life. The powerful thing about individuation is the importance of being okay with disagreement and conflict, because conflict is a natural part of the world and the universe. The universe has conflict. It has opposites that are diametrically opposed to one another. You have fire, you have water, you have polarities and opposites. So when you have opposites, when you have things that have opposing worldviews on how they view life, opposing strategies for how they go about life, you're naturally going to have friction. And that's okay. It's important to have friction because it's showing you that you are following a path that you feel is right. Others have their path that they feel is right. And some people project their path onto you. So just because their path, their individuation process worked for them, or they find fulfillment and happiness in it, they project that process onto you, like you'll find fulfillment and happiness in it. It's like people that are like, oh, like I'm an entrepreneur, and people should be entrepreneurs because it's just better than working 9 to 5. There are people that will agree with that. That's the case for me. But there are other people that they don't care about entrepreneurship. They prefer to have a career where they work for a company they love. So It's not like we need to project each other's individuation processes on one another. This was a big thing with me when I was in college. Was I had to stop college because I knew that I exhausted it to a degree. I met the great people that I met there. I took great classes, but it got to a point where I was like, I already know what I want to do. And it's not computer science, self-development, coaching. It's related to psychology. That's what I want to do. It's related to spirituality. That's what I want to do. And my interest in psychology, me reading this book, it connected to my interest in marketing. Like I found marketing so fascinating. I still do to this day. And what happened? The book I read around marketing and psychology, I was like, wow, marketing is really interesting. And then eventually I started a marketing business with my business partner. We still run it to this day. So like I found my own route. I went through a maze. I got to dead ends, and then I went a different direction. Then I got to dead ends, and then I went here and there and there, here and there. But I didn't go up to people and say, "Can you give me the exact route to the treasure?" No, because they can't give me that because my maze is different from their maze. We have different mazes. So even if they give me the answers to their maze, it's not going to work on my maze. I need to find the answer myself on my maze. So that's very powerful. And there was conflict that came about because naturally, my aunts, uncles, mom, brother, cousins, they have their route in how they approached life. And mine is so different. Mine is so unique to me that when people hear it, it almost sounds like it's almost like unfathomable. But it doesn't matter what's unfathomable to somebody. What's unfathomable is relative to the person. To Superman, flying is a normal part of his day. To you, flying is like sci-fi. It's like ridiculous. To some of you, going a full day in high vibration, positive emotions is like, that's not even fathomable to some of you. To some of you, that's like your everyday thing. To me, that's like my everyday thing. Not to say I don't experience negative emotions sometimes, but my default state is very positive. Why? Because I practiced. So we have different mazes in how we approach life. We can't let others try to create our maze or mold our maze because our maze is our maze and they can't give us all the answers. We can have mentors and people that guide us along the way, but it's up to us to discover, to individuate, to create, to find the path and go down it. So it's about developing a separate identity. And you see this a lot in adolescence, right? Why do you see teenagers rebelling against their parents and all of this? They want to create a separate identity from what the parents have put onto them, from their environment, from doing these hobbies their parents are paying for them to do, from all types of things. And what ends up happening is maybe they end up finding other teenagers or other people that are also like in some sort of individuation process. Then they become like a group or a clique or something like that. But sometimes, I mean, as a teen, you're a little immature and you don't realize that even a group can be limiting your growth as well. But it can help it in you seeing other alternatives and other things that life can bring, as long as they're adding value to your life and not like making you worse, making your condition worse. In Carl Jung's work, he suggested that this was a self-realization process. Throughout life, people are prone to losing touch with certain aspects of their true selves. Through individuation, they are able to integrate these aspects of themselves with all of their new learning and experiences that they gain throughout life. Knowing your preferences is so important, and sometimes it's not a conscious thing. You have to go down into the subconscious and do shadow work around it. A lot of people don't know what they want out of life because they are paralyzed by what they truly want deep down and then what the outside world tells them they should want. Be careful with shoulds. Sometimes we have desires in our shadow that we just let sit, or we try to push it down because it's uncomfortable to express that out. Think about the guy that by his culture, he's told he should be married by 24 or something. Every time he goes to a family event, his uncles, aunts, mom, whatever is always saying, "Oh, you're not married yet. Oh, our religion, you should be married." Boom, 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 right? So he's trying to follow these customs of this religion that he doesn't even agree with. But it's kind of scary to say that. It's kind of, in his mind, dangerous to say that. He's not going to share the truth about him not wanting to be married at that age. In fact, maybe he doesn't even want a relationship until he's like in his 40s or something. And then what happens? He goes with the programming that's not aligned with him. Some people can end up just programming themselves to believing that this is what they want, right? And then they believe it. Others, there's so much resistance that they end up resenting the people that have told them that. So he could end up getting married at that young age, but end up resenting his mother subconsciously for quote unquote making him, but she didn't make him. It was his decision at the end of the day. making him get married. And then what happens? He does all the stuff that follows the path that's not aligned with what he wants. And then he ends up resenting his wife. He ends up resenting his kids. This is how like things like midlife crises happen sometimes. A lot of times it's people that felt like their individuation process was taken from them, or that they had to accommodate what people were telling them. It gets to a boiling point where you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And then people around you are like, who is this person? This isn't the person they're used to. That because you didn't present your authentic core from jump. Why? Because of fear, because of disapproval. This is the thing about disapproval. It comes full circle like this. People think they can just duck disapproval and then it won't affect their life, either directly or indirectly. People that fear disapproval are the same people that are going to be so unhappy in the future. So let's talk about signs of individuation happening. First, changes in attitude. If you're noticing someone or yourself just being different, your attitude is changing towards things, it's a sign that you're moving towards a new direction in life. Maybe you used to be a very angry person, and now the same things that used to anger you, like you don't even bat an eye to it, or it doesn't stick with you that long. You're moving towards a new you. This is what happened to me the other day. I was in my car and I was about to leave my car and just put on my AirPods. And one of my AirPods dropped in between the seats and it got really like stuck. Not even in between the seats, like it was like in between like this small hole in like the seat belt or something like that. I don't know. Follow me here. The old me would have been mad as hell I couldn't get this thing out. He would have probably spent 6 hours trying to get an AirPod out. The me right now, I didn't spend more than 3 minutes trying to get it out. I was like, oh well, so what? It's just an AirPod. It brought value to my life the past year or so. I'm gonna go get another one. Like, so what? It is what it is. It's a possession. It comes and goes. Everything is impermanent. And it's funny because you guys probably think, oh, like Jem always thinks very deeply, and I do have my moments of deep thought. But in the moment, I didn't even go that far as to say to myself, oh, everything's impermanent. Da, da, da. No, that was after the case. There, I just was like, oh well, so what? Is it true that I'm gonna probably have other headphones in my life? Yeah. Am I gonna be okay if this headphone can't be found again? Yeah, I'm gonna be fine. The attitude of my current self is different from the attitude of my previous self. And when you notice this in yourself, you notice a sense of maturity. That's a very big thing, especially when you go from like your teenage years to your early adult years. Individuation helps you with a sense of maturity, a sense of knowing what's worth your time, what's not worth your time, more emotional intelligence, more managing of your time. Me spending 5-6 hours trying to get that out, that's not worth my time. Next, needing more privacy. If you need more privacy, if you're more away from people, this could be a sign of an individuation process going on. You don't reach out as much because you just want to get more in tune with yourself. You need more times for self-reflection. You need more times to explore things. Yeah, it could be a sign. This is a big thing in my teenage years, was just I stayed in my room more because I subconsciously needed a way of just creating my world. And that's what ignited my world now. Like, it started the process. And to this day, like, I still need that sense of privacy, of no one around me, of just me thinking about things and just doing different things. And then sometimes, like my mom, I remember when I was younger, she kind of took it a little personally that I didn't want to be around her. But that wasn't really the case. It was really just me finding my own authentic core. If you're a parent, understand this if you have like young kids or teens or even older kids, like they need their own time. It's not always about you. It's the kid discovering himself. Next, changing what you share with people, right? Going back to privacy, more so just like conversational privacy. Like if you share less things, if you kind of have a more understanding of people, you kind of know who you can trust with certain pieces of information and who you can't. There you go. Appearance changes. If you gravitate to different styles more, if you don't resonate with previous things you used to wear or things like that, it's just changes, right? It's changes that are going on, especially if the new things you wear are a symbol of something, or you get new tattoos that are a symbol of new things you care about, deeper meanings in life. Or maybe you cared about really deep things, but now you're trying to branch more into more of just having fun, just flowing with life. Maybe just taking things a little less on the philosophical side and just moving more towards like, let me just live life. Possessions, buying different things or buying less things, more minimalism. Maybe you're moving towards a new direction. And here's a couple more: changing where you live, changing your beliefs, of course, changing your hobbies. Rebelling is big. changing what you care about, changing the types of people you date, maybe based off past experiences. You know, you dated someone in the past that wasn't a fit at all, and maybe those were the type of people you would continually attract. Individuation, when done right, helps you identify that, and then helps you identify the people you do want to be with. You get clear on what do they look like, how do they behave, what does their life look like, how do they complement me, maybe what's their personality type. And when you get clear on that, like, you become a magnet for that type of person. And then also what you eat. Maybe you did research on the current diet you have and you're like, whoa, why am I eating that? And then you stop and you go a new direction. Then the previous diet, you just feel like, you just see it as, why did I even eat that? Here's a quote: children who don't develop a healthy sense of self may become depressed as adults or have existential crisis. They may wonder why they chose the career they did or the spouse they have, and question if they were really supposed to lead a certain lifestyle. Did they make these choices consciously or simply listen to what others, namely their parents or caregivers, told them to do? If you're in a situation where in the past you ended up listening to so many people and now you're living a life that you don't even want, now's your chance to get clear on the life you do want, and then make that transition and understand that, hey, maybe there will be conflict in the new direction you go, but it's about building the life you want. Like, what do you value more? People's constant approval or building the life you want? You have to decide. And don't blame the other people. They're just, again, kind of projecting their maze onto you, or projecting the maze they think you want. You maybe never communicated what you want, or you didn't know what you wanted, so you just went with what people told you, or you were more susceptible to people's manipulations and you weren't conscious enough to realize what was going on. Individuation is important not only in the development of a healthy identity, but also for the development of healthy relationships. If people are not sure what they want, they may seek relationships that lack appropriate boundaries and support. They may feel unable to pursue their own interests and goals and instead simply go along with what others want them to do. It's interesting. That's a good quote, because I was on a consultation the other week. It was a great call. But she talked about, like, just her difficulty kind of being alone sometimes, and how this affected the way in which she would date, because she would end up dating people she wasn't even interested in. And it would end up wasting her time and the other person's time. And she would notice that after things would end, she would move on so quickly because just the interest level wasn't there. There wasn't enough deep understanding of herself and the type of person she wants to be with. She constantly needed to be around people or needed to be dating somebody. So how do we flip that? It's being okay with being alone, changing the meaning we have with being alone, because even her meaning with being alone was a little warped. Going back to the meaning we assigned to things, she equated being alone to being lonely. But just because you're alone doesn't mean you're lonely. She has a bunch of people in her life. So she goes an entire day being alone. She's not lonely. She has people that care for her. She has people that reach out. She has friends that she hangs out with. But being alone is what she needs, because she needs to feel what that feels like and change the meaning to it. Because when you're alone, individuation becomes easier. Discovering yourself becomes easier. Discovering your interests becomes easier. Discovering the past programming that's holding you back becomes easier. Making your own decisions becomes easier. And then attracting the person you resonate with becomes easier. So she ends up saving time by changing the meaning she has behind being alone, and also going through individuation. Quote: when a person experiences severe trauma, their identity, including personality and emotions, goes through a process of fragmentation. This is when the body divides traits and feelings and groups them into smaller sections, keeping some of them hidden until a safe space for expression is provided. Exactly. So when we express ourselves, a lot of times it's based off how safe we feel in the environment. With the sense of fragmentation, and you know, when we talk about the shadow is just hiding aspects of yourself that aren't approved of. And fragmentation is just these separate pools of personalities that you have. So maybe you're extroverted around your friends because they're also extroverted and you guys do fun stuff together, etc. But around your family, you're more introverted because in the past, your extroverted side was pushed down, or your dad would yell at you when you would be a little more honest, or you would joke or something like that, or your mom was very serious and she didn't like more carefree attitudes. Or maybe you grew up in a strict household, or you had a lot of responsibilities as a kid. So these chiller aspects of you weren't really the most important things, or weren't nurtured or cared for. They're pushed down, and maybe they're expressed in other domains. So now you have fragmentation. So now you feel like you're restricted when you go around family. Why? Because your traits are being pushed and held back, and you can feel it. But individuation is having the courage and confidence to bring these traits out, to bring it out like, okay, when I'm around my friends, this personality of mine, I can still bring that when I'm around my significant other. Who I am right here, I can bring it out when I am at the workplace to a degree. I know there are rules or whatever, but still, we have to watch what we have fragmented and compartmentalized in our psyche. And so that we can bring that out, that way people can see the real us and they're not always taken back by how different we can be, because we've presented that. And then we're okay with conflict, we're okay with disapproval, because either we take the disapproval and it's probably temporary disapproval, like people get used to the new you, the new perceived you that they're just coming across, or you constantly seek validation and man, like you literally live a fraction of a life. Individuation answers the question, who are you beneath all your social roles and responsibilities? If you took off the masks or personas that you hide behind, who would you be if you faced up to all your hidden secrets and made peace with your darkest corners and dared to be yourself no matter how different you are from others? And sometimes life pushes you to individuate. When you feel lost in life and you don't know where to go and you don't really have someone to tell you what to do, that's a golden opportunity. That's a perfect time to start growing into your sense of identity, to start getting clear on what you want. Marcus Aurelius has the quote, "The obstacle is the way." A lot of times we view as obstacles as these inconveniences in life, but really they are hidden gems, hidden rewards that can really help us. Adversity can help us develop skills that we benefit from in the future. Adversity can give us a reference experience that we can look back on in the future to help guide future decisions. For example, someone that's going through financial hardship, in the present time, it's like, it sucks, it's terrible. But the lessons they learn from going through the experience firsthand, not reading it in a book, firsthand experience, as in you are experiencing it live in time, you are experiencing the emotions and thoughts around that. And then you are able to get yourself out of that. With that reference experience, you have the direct lessons of that not happening again. So in the long run, if we expand the time horizon of your life, it is a good thing that it happened. If it didn't, and you never had any type of adversity, any little thing can move you. Literally understand that and be conscious of that. Where you are right now, if there's another version of you that never had adversity, they would literally be a scared puppy dog around life. I know some people are like a little self-deprecating. They're like, oh, I'm already a scared puppy dog. I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to the people that like develop themselves. Because of your adversity, you are who you are now, and I guarantee you, you are stronger than if you didn't have them. So the obstacle is the way. So let's get into ways how to apply an individuation. First, you need courage. You need the courage to go down the path you want to go down. And what does courage mean? Courage is doing things despite fear. So you feel fear, but you do it anyways. It's not the same as fearlessness. You need to develop courage. And how do you develop courage? Well, you do things that scare you. And it's funny because individuation, you have to start with courage in order to develop courage. So it's kind of a catch-22. Next, integrate aspects of your shadow. What have you repressed? For example, maybe you were always the funny person. And being more serious is something that's also a part of you, but you just don't show that side because you're known to be the funny person. That's the identity you think people project onto you. So doing shadow work, you would look at what aspects of my life is being more serious and being more structured going to benefit me? And then you identify them here, 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 here. Now, why am I not being serious? Oh, because of what this person would think, how this person would perceive me. And then you would question that, okay, is it true that people will always approve or disapprove of me? Yeah, it's true. Okay. If that's true, is it also true that no matter what I do, people will approve or disapprove? Yeah, it's true. Okay, so I might as well do what I need to do. And in this aspect is integrate that side of me that's more serious, that's more structured. And then eventually people will get used to this more holistic view of you. And also you'll be happier. Problem solved. Next, get clear on what you want and what you don't want. This is part of individuation. Do self-reflection. Look at the past. What things upsetted you based off your actions and created outcomes you didn't want? Cause and effect here. When you know what you want and you don't want, man, like the decisions you make are easier. You basically create rules and principles around your life. You can set boundaries easier. You can make decisions easier. You're more decisive. And if you don't know what you do or don't want, I mean, that's what individuation is about. It's not going to always happen in like a day. Sometimes it may take longer. And a lot of times what you do want, it's really a feeling. Sometimes you can't even intellectualize it, or you can't even speak it into words yet. It's like a feeling that something brings you, or it's an emotion that comes out. Maybe you identify the emotion first, and then by identifying the emotion, you can select the activities or the different things that bring out that emotion in a healthy way. And then from there, that can kind of help the process of you understanding what you want. And then negative things, it may be a little easier because it's just like what brings you those negative emotions. What makes you go, oh, I have to go there, oh, I have to do that. It's funny because when I moved out on my own, I used to have this belief that, oh, like I have to visit home as much as possible because I don't want my family to think that, I'm neglecting them or forgetting about them and all of that. It's like this social contract I wrote to myself. But it wasn't the case that they felt neglected at all. I had this mindset of, oh, I have to go home. Like no, I don't. It's not like there was this set thing going on for me to visit family. No, it's like when I want to visit, I can go visit. So instead of having to dragging my feet, it's like, no, I'm making the decision to go here, to go there now because I want to. Or I can't go there this weekend because I'm doing this, or I'm driving here or going here. So that's just a small example. Next, say no a lot. You have to say no because what we just talked about boundaries. When you have a rule or a principle for your life, that means you're deciding on that rule and you're not deciding on other things. So naturally, there's a boundary there. Just like how countries like protect their borders, they create fencing or they put guards there. They're trying to put a boundary. They're saying no to whatever's unauthorized to enter the country. So you want to practice saying no, and practice saying, if it's hard for you to say no, practice on small stuff. And again, have the courage to be disapproved of. You have to have that because this courage is like the guards for your individuation process. If you're unable to say no, then you really don't have an individuation process. Next, the new you will be the new norm, just like the current you is. So a lot of times we maybe have fears of how we're perceived, or the new us is perceived, but it'll get to a point where it's the new norm. Like that's who you are now. Like people are like, oh, okay, that's what he does now. That's who he is now. People get used to the new ego of you. So understand that. There may be some conflict, but you'll be fine. Next, there's nothing to fear because this time will pass. Please understand impermanence, like you will be here and you will go on. The universe, nature continues on. So the time in which you're here in this ego, there's a time limit. And there's an opportunity cost for you not individuating. When you do end up individuating and it's late in your life, you're going to have less time to be that authentic version of you. Time is literally passing. Next, avoid the group trap. So a lot of times when we individuate, we end up finding other people that are very similar to us, which is good, right? You're seeing a new perspective on things, etc. But you don't want this group to be your identity. Like people identify with groups and thinking it's them, but you're just part of the group. The group is like a collective identity, but it's not you. You see this with sports teams, music artist fans, and movie fans, all this stuff. You just like the thing. Like that's just something you like. It's not you. So avoid like the group trap when it comes to individuation. Next, don't lose trust in others. I know it can be easy to lose trust in people. This is something I've dealt with, like just finding it harder to trust people. Just feeling like they're going to just bring in their worldview and just contaminate you. But you still want to be open to people's perspectives, their lives. Like you still want to be in the world but not of the world, as in you want to live life, be in society and all of that, but while still not being influenced by every little thing. If people have shown that they can be trustworthy, trust them. Trust that they do have your best interest at heart. If they've shown that they don't, then don't trust them, or do whatever you want to do. Next, build a purpose. So when you have a purpose, you have a direct vision for your life, and because of this beeline vision you have, you are so focused on it that everything else can't distract you from it, because you're already heading towards the treasure. Like your purpose is driving you towards an end goal. These other influences can't affect you finishing that maze. So a purpose is what you want to do in your life. It's kind of like your calling. Watch the imaginary audience, people living in your head rent free and basically making decisions for you. Like their voices chatting in your head. You don't want that to happen. Next, enjoy the unknown. Be okay with being a little lost in your individuation process. Find mentors, find smart people, learn from books, all of that stuff. These are all going to help you finish your maze, but it's not going to finish your maze for you. Beware of destructive processes, right? You or someone else that is kind of looks like they're in an individuation process, but it's not. It's destructive. If it's destructive, that's not the right path at all. There's a difference, right? Like somebody that's engaging in illicit activities continually and rebelling and all of that, that's not necessarily healthy for them. So I wouldn't count that as a strong individuation process. So keep that in mind. Be more patient with people as they adjust to the new you. Give them more time to adjust to the new you as you continue to be your authentic person. And lastly, let others discover themselves. Other people have individuation processes of their own. The fact that you understand this now, you can have more empathy with how they live their life.